Yo, 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 and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji. With me is John. How you doing, boy?
Doing pretty good.
I know, this is the first time you've heard the spiel.
Yeah, this is sick. Honored.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for sliding into my DMs. I mean, usually when people slide into my DMs, it's for different things. But football is just as exciting, you know? But yeah, happy to have you on board. I think let's kick things off with the fan introduction segment. Tell us your name, your Twitter handle, which club you'll be representing tonight, where you're from, and what do you do? A little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Wow. Okay, that's a lot to cover, but I'll try and do it fast here. So keep things exciting. My name's John Ray. My Twitter handle is at my name is John. Pretty simple. My club allegiance is Villa, Aston Villa. And I'm from the U.S. originally, from St. Louis, Missouri, but I live in Oslo, Norway now, and I work as a wine consultant.
Man. You and like my new best friend now.
Yeah, that's right. In a past life, I was also a football writer, and I did some stuff for Taga with RotoWire and stuff like that, so...
Okay.
Pretty familiar with all this scoring going way back, but now I live a different life of ecstasy with wine. So but still playing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listeners, I'll translate that. John is basically saying, I know what the fuck I'm doing, so you better listen up. All right. I gotta ask though, before we get things started, how and why Aston Villa?
Yeah, well, it's actually a long story, but it starts with a lie, which is when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15 in the 2006 season or something like that.
Okay.
My family first got cable for the first time, and then in the United States, Premier League football was on Fox Soccer Channel. And there was a phone-in show where you could call in. So I watched a game, and it was the first game that I ever got to watch. And my uncles are big soccer fans, as we call it here in the States.
Yeah.
And I sort of watched the first game, and Villa were on, and I posed as a Villa fan on this phone call. And then I just sort of lived the lie ever since then, and me and my best friend became really big fans. And now, 16 years later, we've been to a bunch of like North American meetups, and I've been I lived in England for a while and saw them play home and away. So it's been a true love of my life, but sort of starting out from a random thing.
That is such a crazy story, man. I mean, yeah, I don't know how anyone else I know can top that, really. Well, I mean, welcome to the podcast, John. Really happy to have you here. But before we get started, we've got to do our job and plug the socials and ask people to donate to us because we're broke-ass people, you know? We're just trying to have fun, do things out of the kindness of our hearts. But anyways, if you want to talk to us about anything Fantrax related, you can reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram, where our handles are at BanterB. We're also on Discord. People have been messaging us, actually, asking for advice and stuff. Our number is 6585. We post our podcast on Reddit as well, u/banter_boys. You can find all our episodes, though, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. The more recent ones are on SoundCloud. I did upload a bunch of them to YouTube as well, because our SoundCloud account is the free one, not the paid one. So we can only upload a certain amount at a time. So if you can't find all the old episodes, pay us. And how you can pay us is through our newly found donation page on Buy Me a Coffee, or KOFI. You can find that link on our Twitter page, though. So yeah, I think that's a roundabout way of just, go follow, go like, go support us. I think we do entertaining content, if not, educational stuff. So without further ado, I'm gonna do the breakdown spiel of how this episode is gonna run, right? We have like 3 main segments. We do like a bit of a general discussion. We find out about new managers / ownership. We talk about previous season performance versus new season's expectations, old assets, new assets, expected formation, starting 11, the impact of the 5 subs, that goddamn World Cup. But I mean, John is definitely gonna be happy to talk about that, given the States are in the World Cup, right? We'll obviously talk about fan tracks side of things, the draft advice, the segment that everyone really cares about. John will talk about his first pick, next 3 picks, at least 1 hidden gem, and then we're gonna finish things off with how John trades his assets, right? Does he look at form? Does he look at fixtures? Does he slide money under the table? Who knows what this guy does? But I'm excited to get started, so let's do that. All right, new manager, ownership. You've got Stevie G, right? Basically one of the legends of the EPL. Talk a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, well, it's actually been a pretty interesting transition, I think, because Gerrard delegates so much of his tactics to the assistant managers. And we've actually had a transition in assistant manager over the offseason. So no one really knows what to expect there, because the previous assistant manager, Michael Beale, was he's an integral part of Gerrard's 4-3-3 with 2 10s formation that he played at Rangers. And now who knows what we're going to get with Neil Critchley, who was really successful as Blackpool's manager in the championship last season. And now they were playing 4-4-2, and now he's come up and is assistant managing Villa now, but he wasn't on the Australia tour due to what they say is a passport issue. So really only the Rennes game is sort of indicative of his ideas or tactics at all, and that was just a pretty standard 4-3-3. So what he's going to do with the team, I think, might take a little bit to develop, but I'm pretty interested to see what's going to happen there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back as far as the season that you guys came up, where you finished just safe, I want to say, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even a contentious point of you guys were lucky to stay in the Prem, given that VAR call on the line, the goal line. I think it was against Sheffield.
Save in Premier League history? Is that what you're talking about? Orjan Nilam.
Yeah, sure.
He's
obviously.
a Norwegian with the great. Look, he defied the odds. It was the first failure, and I think 9,000 goal line decision system. Decision. It was the first one by Hawkeye that failed. So it is truly the best save, I think, in Premier League history.
Goes down in history, right? But with Dean Smith, I thought you guys had like a proper manager, because you go into the 2021 season. I mean, wasn't that the same season that you guys beat Liverpool like 7-2 or some shit like that?
Yeah, I mean, I love Dean Smith. You won't get me to say a bad thing about him on here. He's a legend at the club, just for bringing us back up, being a Villa supporter. But he kind of ran his course a little bit. There were signs of this happening after Grealish got injured, where that was like the entire system. And so we just kind of ran out of steam, and then he got some bad luck results. And then there's a sizable amount of our fan base that sort of believe in conspiracy or not conspiracy, that the CEO, Christian Purslow, was basically just waiting for Smith to have a bad run of form to bring in a manager that had a bigger profile to sort of increase the targets of the club. Because I definitely agree that we were starting to stagnate a little bit under Smith for that last sort of year. Yeah,
I mean, up to last season, at one point, it looked like you guys were relegation candidates and something needed to happen. And now in the Prem, or maybe any other league, I want to say, the thing is as soon as a club goes on a bad run, now it's just an expected thing. Oh, okay, fire the manager. The players will realize that, their jobs aren't safe. It'll spark some sort of rejuvenation, a fantastic run to kind of bring about safety, and maybe that's what's happened. But CVG coming in from Rangers, where he kind of won the league, a lot of expectations, right? Even speaking to how good of a player he was for Liverpool, I guess the change was much needed, but you kind of did get a glimpse and a taste of the exciting football that CVG could bring. And I mean, with a player like that, the players that he's played with, the ability to bring the likes of Coutinho to the league again, you must be quite excited for what's to come, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. And if for nothing else, then, like you said, he's raised the profile of the club and the type of signing that we can bring in. I'm a pretty big players purist guy, where I don't think that the best manager in the world could even finish mid-table with a relegation team. So the fact that Stevie brought over Kamara, he went to his house in Marseille and sort of waxed lyrical to him about the club, brought in somebody like Diego Carlos in the back line and Coutinho as permanent signings this transfer window, I think is sort of a testament to the increased pull that we have under him and so many players wanting to play under Gerrard. Somebody else who was rumored to come to the club basically just because he's a Gerrard fan was Konrad Leimer, who plays for RB Leipzig. Apparently he's probably going to go to Munich, but that's the sort of profile that we're targeting in the middle of the park too. Yeah. So I think it's a pretty exciting time to really take us to that next level where we are challenging for Europe.
Yeah, I mean, and to move on to that, basically the final part of the segment, in terms of new season expectations, looking at how your preseason has gone, 4-0 win against Walsall, a 1-0 win against Leeds, you beat Brisbane Roar 1-0, there was a draw 2-2 between Manchester United, but then a win versus Rennes. I think you guys and Arsenal are the only two clubs that haven't lost a game in preseason. So is this top 10 finish then? Is that the bare minimum that you're expecting?
I think even if we lost every preseason game, that would still be the bare minimum that we're sort of expecting from the ownership and the board, the amount of money that they've invested into the project, the type of players that we're bringing in now, what the sort of remit that Gerrard's gotten. But I mean, it is obviously a little encouraging that we went unbeaten in preseason. But I also think how much can we really read into preseason results, Yeah. Because we didn't really look good in a bunch of the performances, but we were sort of grinding stuff out better. And that's really where I think Diego Carlos is really going to come in, is just being a little bit more solid at the back with Kamara and helping out a little bit.
Okay, well, I now want to move on to old assets versus new assets.
Yeah, right? Sorry, I sort of just swung into that there.
That's all right. Not at all. A perfect segue, perfect transition. The thing is, I want to go back as far as January 2022, right? Because we talk about the likes of Coutinho coming on loan. You get Luca Dean in that window, Callum Chambers from Arsenal, and Robin Olsen, right? I think fantastic signings, right? But I do want to discuss the outs before we discuss those ins. Sure. But only the names that are kind of, I want to say, Fantrax relevant, right? Yep. Cult hero Keenan Davis, like you mentioned before, Nottingham Forest on loan. Is he with the club right now permanently still? What's his deal?
Yeah, he is with the club permanently. He basically gets a hamstring injury when he wakes up for breakfast, but when he does play, he's a wrecking ball. So he just returned to first team training. Okay. But I mean, the ideal situation, I think, for both the club and the player is that we sell him in this window. Yeah. So I think something around £10 million for him from either a club targeting promotion or Forest themselves would be ideal. Even if he goes to Forest, I do not see him as a particularly Fantrax relevant player, just because he's sort of like an old style mold of link up forward. I would compare him to Che Adams in terms of fantasy, which is not a great comparison.
It really isn't. I'm trying to find the positive here.
But I like him a lot as a player. I think he does a lot of good stuff on the pitch. It's just not really carrying over into sort of shot creating actions.
Okay, fair enough. So Wesley is another player that I kind of want to quickly talk about.
Yeah.
He last season he went on loan to Internacional, and now he's gone on loan to Levante, I believe.
Yep.
I remember was it a Friday night match or something like that? It might have been against Leeds or Everton.
Oh,
Maybe
it was against Burnley. You mean when Ben?
It was
Mee
Burnley.
broke
Okay,
him?
okay. Well, nobody got injured, but he came and scored the winner or something like that. I think it was a 2-0 win or something like that. There was potential in him. I feel like he had potential to be a good player. But again, last season he was basically crocked, right? So is that now you guys have still, faith in him to become a value asset? But the problem is there's no space in that front line with Danny Ings playing and stuff like that, right?
No, there's no faith, but it's actually a pretty sad story with Wesley, I think, because he scored 2 goals in this game against Burnley, and Ben Mee did like a scissor tackles at his knee, Jordan Pickford style, just
great reference, by the way.
It's literally like a carbon copy of the Jordan Pickford tackle on Van Dijk.
Yeah.
And his knee was completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And he came back in preseason last year and just wasn't the same guy. I mean, a lot of stats people weren't that high on the signing of Wesley in the first place, but I really liked his story, and he was pretty good for us before the injury. So it was just pretty sad, and I hope he can kick on now at Levante and sort of get himself back into a top club mindset, not only for Villa's sort of like economic sake, but just because he was like a nice guy who always tried hard and is sort of from a rough background. So I wanted to see him succeed for sure.
Okay, awesome. So I mean, this guy probably isn't Fantrax relevant, but I would love your opinion on his recent move to Chelsea. I'm gonna butcher this fucking name, so you're gonna have to help me here, John. I'm gonna take a crack at it though. Chukwuemeka?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Carney Chukwuemeka. Otherwise, he wants to be known as Carnes now.
Okay, all right.
Which I think is very funny.
So, did you guys lose a gem here?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Chelsea signed a guy with 240, I think, Premier League minutes for £20 million, which is a testament to everything that he did at the youth level, both for Villa and for England. I mean, once he sort of gets up to the point where the footballers of his age level are playing against him in the Prem, so give it 3 or 4 more years, he's going to be unstoppable. I think it was a good move for both sides in terms of Chelsea bought a player that I'm fairly confident will be a 40 to 60 million pound, if not more, player by the time that he has 1 year remaining on his deal left at Chelsea. And Villa got £20 million for a player that didn't want to re-sign, and the best competing offer was apparently £3 million from AC Milan, from what I've heard.
Oh wow! Okay. But I mean, still awesome to be linked with a club of such like a prestigious level, right? AC.
Yeah, and I think for people that are sort of in a dynasty format, or they're wanting to know about next year's draft or a draft 2 years from now, I think he's definitely going to become fantasy relevant. And I would also keep an eye on Chelsea's sort of perma-croc midfield situation, because there's a chance that you get a Christmas start around this season, and the kid is like a successful take on Machine, I would say. So he can be fantasy relevant if he gets a start. I just don't really see it at Chelsea with so much competition. I think Gallagher's staying for this season as well. The midfield positions are super crowded. So if he gets a crack, he is dynamite. He's sick.
Okay. Very, very good to know. Anwar El-Ghazi, gone to Everton on loan. I never really understood that move, and I don't think he did either. But I'm assuming he's back at the club, but still not relevant?
Yeah, I mean, my guess with El-Ghazi is that Rafa sort of wanted him, and then Frank took over and was like, okay, you're not playing anymore. Again, it's a guy that it's kind of difficult for me to talk badly about because he's such a sweetheart and was so instrumental in so many of the good moments of Villa from our promotion to the Premier League and stuff like that. But he's just a tad beneath the class of what you would want from a Premier League forward. He scores a lot of improbable goals, like XG wise, but he's not getting in the right positions, nor is he like setting up his teammates. So they're just that improbable. So it's sort of, I think, tough for a team to bank on him. And especially from a Villa perspective, he's not relevant for Villa anymore. So I think the ideal thing is we get him like a nice landing spot back in Eredivisie or the Championship. And he's a top player at that level and was top for us in our promotion quest and scored a lot of goals. So there's definitely like a 5 to 10 million range there, I think, where he's a great player. But unfortunately, not quite there anymore at the Premier League level.
Yeah, I mean, I totally believe that this guy is a sweetheart because shout out to Ryan Barnes from the Draft Society. I think they had their Draftapalooza, was it in Portugal or something, somewhere in Europe. And they took a picture of, Ryan has this shit and I think is obsessed apparently with Anwar El Ghazi, but it's basically a picture of him with the caption Anwar El Messi. And like basically tagged him and called him, "Are you the real MVP?" And El Ghazi actually responded to it and was like, "Love it, Ryan." And it's like, I mean, that kind of just talks about how nice of a guy he is, right?
Yeah, he's a legend. Like no one at the club has anything bad to say about him. Also, if he does wind up somehow going to like a Forest or a Bournemouth or something like that, he's literally the best penalty taker in Villa's history.
Really?
He does not miss. He is lights out from the penalty spot. So if he somehow gets to a situation where he is playing in the Premier League, he'll take the pens and he'll score them.
Okay. I mean, listen, every time I watch games as well, he's a greedy motherfucker. Like, he loves to shoot on sight too. Like, every opportunity, he loves to shoot. I'm gonna take a shot. Like, yeah, I think he was a solid Fantrax asset at one point during his high time. Anyway, let's move on because I feel like we could make this an El Ghazi podcast. To Matty Targett, went on loan to Newcastle, now permanent. Big loss?
I mean, for Villa, it's not a big loss because we've replaced him with a better player. But I do think that Target is fantasy relevant.
Yes,
continues to be. I mean, if you look at his stats, he's always up there with the players that complete the most crosses, both percentage wise and overall from fullback position. And he's a quality player who was in his prime for Villa, like a player of the season contender. I think he won our player of the season the year that they had like the whole lockdown and stuff and came back and he was dynamite. But what happened with Target is in the last offseason, he came back. There was basically no preseason. He came back insanely fat, got absolutely cooked by Ismail Assar in the first game of the season. And then Dean Smith was like, okay, so we can't trust you to be a professional at this point. We had to play Ashley Young for like 3 games while he regained fitness. And that was sort of the end for him at the club. It seems like he's trying a little bit more at Newcastle, but it is, I think, concerning to me that he does have that somewhere in his locker. He's a carbonara boy, as I like to call them, where like you don't know that they're not going to be in Ibiza taking down a 2-man person paella as one person.
Oh man, oh that's too funny. Okay, let's move on to our last Last name. Trezeguet. So he had a really, really bad knee injury from what I remember.
Yeah.
I think he went off to loan to Istanbul Başakşehir last season. Now it's a permanent move to Trabzonspor. At one point in time, he seemed like he was a really, really good Fantrax asset.
He was, yeah.
Would you say he's a loss to the squad, or again, you guys just have talent to replace him? You know, the likes of Jacob Ramsey coming through the ranks and like looking like a fucking goal machine at one point.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you're saying, he's not really a loss, but like vibes wise, I keep being like sentimental for these guys who like helped us. Back post Trez kept us in the Premier League. The banger that he scored against Arsenal, he scored a goal against Leicester to get us into the League Cup final. So. Yeah. He'll always be a legend, but yeah, unfortunately been replaced by better but arguably less Fantrax relevant players. I mean, like the 4-3-3 under Dean Smith, like every single one of those wingers would just put up 10 points a game, no questions asked, despite not being good and having like a terrible game on paper.
Yeah, I mean, like the likes of Bertrand Traore even thrived in that system, right?
Straight up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about those ins now. So, I mean, spend as you can either be like, no, fucking not relevant or whatever, but then we can talk about how good of a value they are and stuff like that, right? So Callum Chambers came in the end of last season. Actually, let me get to Robin Olsen. Relevant, or can we move on?
Not relevant, but could be a good backup keeper or something if Martinez gets hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Callum Chambers, end of last season, I felt like he was putting up some good numbers. Konza had that season-ending injury. Do you think he's going to be relevant moving forward? Like, given the likes of Diego Carlos coming in and stuff like that.
It's really tough to say because I mean we have 4 players competing for 2 center back positions, and he and Mings sort of seem like they're coming into the season as the rotation options, but. I do really like him, and I think his passing range and stuff like that makes him potentially as Fantrax relevant as a mid-table center back can be. But again, the game time's not there, so I think he's sort of someone that people should be looking at as a streaming option if Villa have a good matchup and he gets the green tick.
Okay, all right. Love it. Green tick as in the one from Fantrax that you see when they're starting.
That's
okay.
Right.
Because I'm like, hey, you don't always see it. Like that website has a tendency to just stop working on a random weekend, and you just see Twitter just implode.
Yeah,
well,
mostly
our
on
community.
Sunday afternoons, I've noticed. Fair enough.
Oh man, yeah. Honestly, I love that time because every time it's imploded, I just go on there and I just like everyone just bitching about how terrible a free platform is. I'm like, get over yourself. Come on, man.
That's right.
Anyways, let's move on now to the bigger name. Names. Luka Dean. What a fantastic acquisition. Honestly, the best thing Rafa has done for your club.
Baller. Yeah, straight up. Yeah, thanks, Rafa. In my eyes, you're not just a big fat Spanish waiter or whatever they call him, but you know, you've helped us out too. So.
Yeah. New set. Is he basically like the main set piece corner taker or whatever for you guys now?
He takes some on the right hand side if you're like looking at the pitch. But and it depends if Douglas Luiz is playing too. So he takes like sort of like the left hand taker positions. And then Luiz has been taking the right footed taker positions. Sometimes Mcginn takes them as well. And sometimes Coutinho takes them. So it's a little up in the air. But yeah, I would say Digne's in the mix on set pieces, which is about all that you can ask for from a left back.
Yeah, and I mean, based on how Gerrard was kind of rolling out the team last season, he loves his fullbacks to kind of bomb forward. So if he's not on set pieces, chances are he's probably giving a key pass for a shot on goal, or maybe even crossing to Matty Cash, who's like bombing forward from the right hand side, right? So definitely, I think is an excellent acquisition for you guys. But I've got to round things off with Philippe Coutinho, right? And this kind of ties into the summer transfers as well. You guys have signed him permanently from Barcelona for like 10% of whatever he was fucking worth. Like, you guys basically ripped them off, right?
Yeah, I mean, we sold this teenager for more than we paid for Coutinho, so...
Way to break even and more. But I mean, Coutinho lit the world on fire when he first came in. Like, people are like, all right, this is like maybe a round 2 or round 3 pick. But then he kind of tailed off towards the end. And it's a little concerning, like, how you kind of rate him or value him in Fantrax drafts.
Yeah, I mean, are you sort of trying to imply that there might be some Joe Willock syndrome going on here? Like potential Jesse Lingard syndrome? No.
I mean, you got to put some respect on Joe Willock's name. I never saw Coutinho score like 7 goals in 7 games, right? So until he does that, you know?
That's right. No, but I mean, so the issue with... I'm going to talk about a couple of these players as sort of like units. Yeah. Because there's Coutinho Buendia. And then there's Carlos Kamara. But to start with Coutinho Buendia, as long as Coutinho's getting those minutes over Buendia, he is a incredibly valuable Fantrax asset. I mean, I think he started almost every game and put up close to 10 points a game at least from the midfield position when he was playing last season, and that's including all those sub apps and stuff like that. So the thing is that he gets shot creating actions, whether or not they're good or not is debatable, and he gets take-ons, and he does a decent amount of stuff on the pitch. So even if he's not scoring or assisting, he's in the mix, and there's only so many creative players in the team. So whoever's getting the starts out of that Buendia Coutinho competition, and it seems like Gerrard likes his boy Coutinho quite a bit, they're going to be incredibly Fantrax relevant.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So moving on to the summer window recently, right? Maybe we can race through these because we did talk about a few names that are kind of matching up to this one. The only one maybe we can kind of touch on, and I was actually quite high on him when you guys just came into the league. He was putting up good numbers for you in the championship, was Conor Hourihane. He's been released by the club, right?
Playing for Derby now.
Oh, really? Okay. But he had like a wicked delivery on him.
I mean,
decent set piece delivery.
He still does. That's not gone.
Yeah. Do you think maybe he kind of lost, or maybe Fantrax managers didn't really have a chance to see his true potential, I guess?
I mean, he's just slow as hell and has always been, and has just gotten slower over time. So like, yeah. I mean, in the sense that like he could have been like Charlie Adam at Blackpool. But he never... Like, Villa always, since we got our new owners, have had, like, sort of higher ambitions than just sticking around in the Premier League. So he quickly got sort of subsumed in that midfield and didn't get, like, a system built around him or anything. But, I mean, super quality player, good guy, and has an absolutely sick delivery. So if anybody's in, League One FPL... I think he already scored a goal for Derby. He's going to be fire for them. So,
wow. Okay. All right. Love that. Well, I hope he carries on well. So let's move back to the ins of the summer transfer window. Again, let's talk about some relevant assets. I feel like I'm gonna quickly run through the ones I don't think are relevant. Rory Wilson coming in from Rangers and Ewan Simpson from Hearts. I'm assuming that's just... Yeah, okay, let's move on.
Youth players, yeah. But they're going to be good, apparently. But they're just youth players.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Ludwig Augustinsson. I think he would be backup to Luka Dean?
Yeah, he's only relevant if and when Luka Dean gets hurt. But he could have a couple nice streaming games if Dean gets hurt. He's a similar type of player, but just not as good.
Yeah, I think I came across him during Euro Fantasy. He looked good in the Euros as well, right? So let's move on now to the I think, more relevant names. We'll start off with Bubakar Kamara coming in from Marseille. What are your thoughts about him, and how highly are you rating him as a Fantrax asset?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I can sort of group him and Carlos because I don't
Yeah,
think that
go
they're
for it. Definitely.
particularly relevant individually. Carlos could be sort of relevant in the sense that like Mings was last season, but as a
Yeah.
group, what they're going to do is they're going to inflate the value of Digne, Cash, and Emi Martinez from the goalkeeper position, because what we were really lacking last season was solidity down the middle. I'm actually a pretty big Mings fan. He gets a lot of stick, but I think he was better than his like sort of low lights reel would make it seem. But
Yeah.
Carlos, both in his time at Sevilla and in the preseason for us, hasn't sort of put a foot wrong. And his passing range looks insane. And likewise with Bubakar Kamara, who is just so much more defensively solid than Luis. And he's coming from a development place where he started as a center back, playing sometimes in a back three, and got moved into a DM position. So his natural instinct is to defend and solidify things, which then is going to allow everyone else to push forward more because they know they can count on him to sort of fill in as a three in possession and get the fullbacks to bomb on like Gerrard wants them to. So really, I think that those two signings are sort of completing the concept of the squad. And I mean, I think I bid like $200 out of a $1,000 budget in my auction for Digne and still got outbid. But I want him really badly, and I wanted Cash really badly because I really don't even think that with how good they performed after Gerrard came in last season, I think we're just sort of scratching the surface of what they can do in terms of fullback numbers because of these two signings.
Okay. I might need to try and send out some trades after this call, boy. Okay. Let's move on now, I guess, into the expected formation starting 11. How do you see Villa lining up?
Yeah, so with the caveat that things could change over the course of the season due to Critchley coming in, as I was talking about, and Gerrard letting his assistants work with the team, what we've been running in preseason, and especially in our last game against Rennes, which I think sort of previewed the lineup because we played a second 11 against Fulham. I think for week one, we're going to get Martinez, Digne, Carlos, Konsa, Cash as like the sort of back unit. And I think that's sort of a surprise because a lot of people thought Carlos would be starting on the right of Mings. But it seems like Konsa's gotten that call up, which is, I mean, good for him.
I mean, Konsa deserves it, though. I think he's a baller. I'm not sure I quite highly rate Mings. He seems a little haphazard at times. He gets the job done, don't get me wrong, but he also has this tendency to kind of lose his concentration in games, I find. Yeah,
my only concern with Konsa is, like, distribution-wise. He's a very bad passer of the ball, to be honest. But I think him coming back from injury so fast and working so hard in rehab sort of really impressed the coaching team. And they're like, okay, you work so hard, we're going to give you your shot at the start of the season and give you your,
that's fair.
You've earned the shirt back.
Yeah.
And then Kamara in that DM role. And then Mcginn and one of Luis or Ramsey, depending on if it's a team that we should be controlling the ball against or if it's a team that we should sort of be countering against, I think.
Interesting. And then the rest of it, Luis and Ramsey, and then the front three of Bailey, Watkins, and Coutinho. Now, I mean, two things with this. Buendia, who was last season almost crazy to say. People were taking him in the first round, early second, not making this list. But what's even crazier is Bailey, who is almost like a new signing this season. We saw his ability, his potential. I think he got like a goal and assist. He came on, fucked up the game, basically won it, and then came off injured, and has been killing it in preseason, right? I kind of want to quickly talk about these two guys as Fantrax options.
Yeah. I mean, I think Bailey earned the shirt in the preseason. At least that's what we've heard from everybody. You know, Gerrard being stubborn as he is, we could just turn around and see Danny Ings up there with Ollie Watkins' first game. But Bailey had 3 goals and 2 assists in the preseason and looked like our best player in basically every game. So, and I think Bournemouth is the type of team where it's like, okay, you earned the shirt, go out and prove that you deserve to keep it. And I think, I mean, they have like 4 defenders right now. So if there's a team to do it against, it would be them.
When your manager comes out and is like, yeah, we're quite crap at the moment, and I didn't expect we'd be this crap, like not really promising words, you know?
No, yeah, for sure. And then on the Buendia side, I mean, I still see him as in our best 11 and incredibly Fantrax relevant. I think if a lot of the fans had their way, we would be starting with Kamara and Luiz as a holding 2. And then Coutinho, Buendia, Bailey ahead of them right now. Might be sort of like the fan ideal 11. But I think it just sort of doesn't have quite enough control for Gerrard. But I think, especially with 5 subs, and also because he's had such an impact off the bench when he does come off the bench, Buendia is unfortunately probably on the outside looking in to start the season and waiting for an injury to sort of stake his claim back in the side, which is really, I mean, I was as high on him as anyone, and when he plays, he always puts up numbers. So I think he's sort of the guy that if you're a conniving manager, you sort of hope doesn't play until the first international break, and then you get sort of like a cheeky drop, and then you can hold him as sort of squad rotation comes in and stuff like that.
Yeah, because even towards the end of last season, Bundy was popping up with some serious form, man. He looked like he was going to be getting that starting spot back. But yeah, I mean, football is a cruel game sometimes. Let's quickly move on.
Baller.
Yeah, definitely a baller, 100%, right? He made the Argentina squad as well towards the end of last season. I mean, deserves to go to the World Cup. I'm not sure he's going to be able to start for Argentina.
I feel pretty bad for him, man, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because, there's no reason why Coutinho should be starting over him, but he is.
Yeah.
And, you sort of have to be differential to that level of talent. But, I mean, for me, Buendia has been outperforming Coutinho for, the past, 4 months or something. Coutinho wasn't great in the preseason either, but we'll see how that battle sort of develops. And if I was an FPL manager, I would just be keeping one eye on that situation, because whoever is getting those starts is going to be a top 20 FPL player.
Okay. All right. 5 subs. Who you worried about from all the players that we talked about in terms of drafting them? You think Gerrard is going to use this? Also, does it benefit your team, given the level of depth? Or do you think this is just a rich club scheme?
Well, I mean, fortunately, Villa are a rich club now, technically. So I think it is actually a pretty big benefit to us. I sort of outlined who my 5 subs would be given that expected formation. And I think Buendia, Archer, Ings, Sansone, and Ramsey are all very legitimate candidates to be getting subbed on, with Ramsey and Archer being the homegrown under 23 options. And I think there's every chance that all 5 of those players could be getting on in any given game. They all have game-changing talents, and I think, if anything, it really hurts Ollie Watkins' value, because Danny Ings is going to be playing. He's comfortable playing off the bench, but he's going to get minutes, and Cam Archer scores goals whenever he comes on the pitch. And I wouldn't be completely surprised if it's sort of like the type of thing where we start with a 4-3-3, and if it's not working, at the end we throw up Archer and Ings on top, in Buendia in the 10 role, and just tell them to press like crazy, sort of thing. Fair enough. I mean, I think everybody could be sort of getting used in this. especially in games when we're losing. And I mean, Coutinho loses out a bit as well, I think.
Yeah,
Given
it sounds so. Based on the names that you've kind of come up with, yeah.
Well, and it's just the type of thing where if he's not performing great in a game, he's going to be a 60 to 70th minute sub for Buendia every single time.
Okay, interesting. Because I think he's been going in like third, fourth round. And I mean, based on the draft segment, which we're going to come to very soon, yeah, it's interesting how you've kind of listed those guys out as well. Quickly on the World Cup, though, you guys have a lot of people leaving.
Yeah. Coutinho, Digne. I'm sorry, but I forget if Poland made it, but I think they did. So Cash.
I feel like they did, yeah.
Potentially Watkins if he starts the season off well.
Yeah.
Bailey sticking around is very good for Bailey's value. Buendia potentially sticking around is good for Buendia's value. I would target him right before the World Cup if he hasn't been playing a lot.
Yeah, fair.
Kamara could go with France, but it's sort of up in the air. And if he went, it's sort of like a vibes selection.
Yeah.
Same with Louise. Mcginn thankfully didn't make it with Scotland, although I love Scotland.
Yeah.
But he's going to get a nice chunk in there to rest, which is going to be really good for our season personally.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And obviously Martinez is going.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's an Argentinian legend now.
Yeah, already.
Instant having legend. Helped them win the Copa. Yeah. Has to be. Messi probably has a special seat for him in his house at the dinner table or whatever. Quickly on the World Cup, US making it. You must be buzzing in the same group as England.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a lot of fun. The only sort of sour grapes for me is that Norway barely didn't qualify in like the last game week when Haaland was out for like half of the season. But because I'm living here and my wife's Norwegian, so it would have been fun to sort of experience that here in Norway. But definitely buzzing about the US, and I think again have the potential to sort of go deep in the tournament depending how the bracket works out, just because super hardworking team and suddenly getting a bunch of talent in there that's not sort of the name guys. There's a whole other generation coming through that look really great. So pretty excited to see how they continue to develop. And I think it's really cool for the sport in the US that we continue to have something sort of to be proud of in the World Cup and have a rich history in that competition, actually, given sort of the quality that you would expect the US to have. So long may it continue.
Do you watch Ted Lasso by any chance?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's you mean Jesse Marsh, the biopic?
Yeah, obviously. You know, it's funny. We made this exact joke on the Leeds episode right before this, so fans are gonna be like dying still.
God, honestly, Jesse Marsh is so cringe. I'm sorry to the Leeds fan who was on before this, but what he says I think he shares the sentiment. It's like fight and win type vibes. Yeah.
I think he shares the sentiment. All right, let's move on now to fan favorite segment, draft advice. Basically, like if you skipped everything that we've kind of talked about, I hate you. Like definitely listen to what we've talked about because it's been a fantastic conversation so far. Okay, first pick from Aston Villa. I'm pretty sure this is obvious, right? But based on what you kind of said in terms of his minutes, like now it's a concern, right?
Yeah, but I still have Coutinho as my personal first pick, just based on how most people's leagues are operating. Those key passes and shot creating actions, shots on target are like gold. And Coutinho reliably supplies them like almost no one else. And I think if you're sort of like analyzing his performance from last season, you're compounding a bunch of getting subbed off and getting subbed on and him still putting up sort of 10 points per game performances. I think someone being that reliable in the midfield is pretty rare in the Trax game. And players that can do that always are tradable assets and always sort of carry through the season as long as they're not injured. I think of someone like James Madison is someone that Coutinho is analogous to for next season in terms of, I think there's every chance that he could be like sort of a 6-goal, 8-assist type player for the season. And while that doesn't sound great on paper, in Fantrax, that's better than a 12-goal, 1-assist guy.
Yeah, true. All right, he's going in like third round or whatever.
I think that's about right. I would even maybe go
round?
slightly higher just because of midfield scarcity.
Okay, fair. Have you got any Aston Villa players, by the way, for any of your drafts that you're playing this season?
Yeah. I only have my like home auction league, which we take super seriously. But let me see
given the
I've
fact that you've
on
got like $1,000 budget.
Yeah. I have Coutinho and Bailey.
Ooh, that's exciting.
But I'm sort of planning to trade Bailey, but we'll see how he goes.
Yeah, sell high.
My hope is that these first 3 weeks he sort of gets in there,
Yeah, for sure. Like Ben Rama sort of started the season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Who are your next 3 picks?
So I think also pretty obviously I had Luca Digne in there.
Yeah.
I just think he's so reliable and such a important part of Gerrard's system with crossing the ball. And I have Cash right after him. And the difference between Digne and Cash is that Digne's primary value in the Gerrard system is going from crossing the ball. In Cash's primary value is being a back post finisher.
Yeah.
With also some like low crosses mixed in and stuff like that. So I just think in general, just like with Coutinho being my first pick on here, guys that are crossing are generally more valuable than guys that are finishing in Fantrax. So I have him I have both of them as my second and third picks, but I think Digne is just a slight tier above Cash. But I mean, if you look at their ADPs or in your league, if there's a big gap in the value there, I would not be mad at all taking Matty Cash and sort of running away with it.
Yeah, I mean, like, so like the 3 players that you have listed, I mean, sorry to kind of jump the gun, but Digne, Cash, and Watkins, it seems like they're all kind of going around the similar point, right? End of 4th, start of 5th, like around that point or whatever, right? But one of my concerns though about Digne that you talked about, if you look at his history, I mean, we know how fucking amazing he can be, right? Maybe around a 14 point per player, like on his high.
He was
but
sick.
The thing is that he was sick. But the thing is, my problem is that at Everton, he was basically their best player, I want to say, right? But like he was doing everything, I want to say, even scoring goals from free kicks, all that sort of stuff. His drop in value or his performance, I know there's that Rafa drama and all that sort of shit, but do you think maybe playing with a pool of such talented players like, you know, Coutinho and Buendia, does he lose some value in losing set pieces and goal threat and all that sort of stuff? Or you know, you get more key passes, assists? Like, how do you kind of see that one?
I think the set pieces are sort of the biggest factor there, but I think from open play, he has every potential to be as good for Villa as he was for Everton. I think missing sort of like a target man in DCL is a big difference as well, but Watkins is no slouch in the air either, and I think this season, the hope is that we're dominating the ball more in the opposition's area. And from that, we should be getting more crosses into dangerous areas and stuff like that. But my biggest concern with Digne is, as always, health. So he has a big injury history. Usually, I want to say like prorated, he misses like around 6 to 8 games a season, sometimes more. So that's sort of baked into his value there, whereas Matty Cash, I think, was the Iron Man last season. He played the most available minutes out of anyone. So that's something to bake in also when you're comparing their value. It might even make them sort of like 1A, 1B for me. Like they're going to be great, I think. And if you think about what happened after Gerrard, they were both almost 10-point-a-game players. And should only be better this season as sort of the philosophy continues to develop.
Yeah, and the last player that you have in that 3, the Ollie Watkins, I mean, it's an interesting thing with Ollie. Like, I feel like his value is affected whether or not he has the penalties nailed, right? But I heard during preseason, Coutinho took one, missed it. But, I mean, if Ings is on the pitch, he takes them. We did see a drop-off in his performance, right? From, like, around 12 to, like, 9 points per game. Do you think maybe you could replace Watkins in that 3 with anyone?
Yeah, and Ollie Watkins is terrible at penalties. He might be one of the worst penalty takers I've ever seen. He should not be taking them. Just as an aside. So I that's not baked into his value there.
Yeah.
For me, I think next up would be John Mcginn.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised he's not on this list at all.
Yeah, I mean, so he doesn't really qualify as a hidden gem for me, but in terms of like draft value, I do think he could sort of go below the radar. But I see him as sort of like someone like a João Moutinho, who could randomly put up 11 points a game one season and then 8 or 6 the next or something like that, just based on role and stuff like that. We don't really know how the new system is going to develop, if McGinn's sitting more and stuff like that. I really like McGinn, but I think from the forward position, Ollie Watkins has every chance to be a 15-goal scorer, in which case he's one of the most valuable Fantrax players, hands down, from that position. So that's why I have him in there. I think there's more upside. He had, I mean, if you look at sort of like our Aston Villa's Twitter, like the fans are on Ollie Watkins' back constantly now that Mings is seemingly out of the 11. But despite having a terrible season last year, he still scored 10 goals. So
fair point.
Yeah,
fair point.
I think, and not being on penalties usually. So I think he scored 1 penalty last season. So I think he has every chance to get 15 goals, and is in my opinion everything that you want from a modern striker. He does all 3 phases of play and gets involved a lot, which just helps a lot in Fantrax as well. Last season, this is a little tidbit that I do think is actually Fantrax relevant. He picked up a knee injury in the last preseason friendly that allegedly he like never recovered from. And if you look at his pressing numbers from 2019-20 to, or whatever it was, I forget time now, 2020 to 2021 to 2021-2022. His pressing numbers dropped like a rock. He was less involved in play and stuff like that. So I think this season we could see him return to his best form. He's been really involved in play in the preseason, despite not having like amazing goal scoring contribution numbers. But as we've been saying this whole time, that's not what Fantrax is all about. So getting involved is the most important thing to me. And he's been getting way more involved in the preseason. So I would make note of that.
All right, done. Now finally, hidden gem. Do you have 1? Do you have 2? What do you have up your sleeve?
Yeah, I mean, so I have 3. We already touched on them a little bit. But I mean, I think Leon Bailey definitely gets hidden gem merit here, because when you see him in your draft list, you see like 4.95 points per game or whatever his aggregate was last season after putting up a bunch of terrible bench performances in the second half of the season. But for me, he has everything in his makeup to be a dynamite winger with Fantrax scoring and pepper the keeper, take a lot of set pieces. He's actually been in competition with Digne for a lot of those left-footed corners, and he got an assist on one in the preseason for Callum Chambers in the game against Man U. So that's something to make note of. He takes a lot of the set pieces as well. And I think as of now, he figures to be a really big player for Villa. If that continues, I don't know. But if you can get him for the first 3 games and he looks like he's a, let's say, 12 point per game player, and you can flip him for an old Mr. Reliable, let's say James Maddison, who has a slightly tougher run of fixtures, doesn't put up great points, something like that. Yeah. Do that, take that trade. But I think if you have the opportunity to get Bailey in your team here at the start, while Villa have such favorable fixtures, absolutely do it. And if you remember last season in the home game against Everton, Bailey had a goal and an assist. So I think you could see a lot of that form being recreated here at the start. And then I had Buendia, who we already talked about. Don't need to bring that up again. But again, someone to just make note of if he's on your free agent list. And then the last one, which I think is a true hidden gem, is this kid Cameron Archer, who if you're clued into FPL, you probably know about from this point because he's one of the 4.5 price players who's most likely to play. But he scored 7 goals in 20 appearances for Preston in the championship. Went to the European U21 camp, scored 2 goals there, came back for Villa preseason, scored another 2 goals, I think. So the kid just scores goals. Scored in the League Cup against Chelsea last year. Scored a bunch in our Papa John's trophy campaign. He scores wherever he goes. He's going to be playing. We're keeping him around the club. And if there's an injury to Watkins, Danny Ings is injured all the time, he could get some serious minutes. He could also just stake his claim as the starter pretty quickly. Honestly, if he comes on and starts bagging goals. The kid, he is really exciting. And if not for this season, if you're in a dynasty format or for next season, I think he could be right in the mix for Villa in terms of forward options. So definitely keep one eye peeled in case he gets that green tick. Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely now gonna probably try and get Leon Bailey, the hidden Jamaican. Get it, guys? Anyways, let's move on to that final segment with that terrible joke. Trading assets. All right, John, talk to us, man. What do you do? Do you look at form? Do you look at fixtures? Do you do 2-for-1 trades? Do you slide some fab under the table? Like, how do you, what's your secret sauce?
Oh, man, what do I do? Well, I mean, it's tough to say because... a couple of the guys in my league are probably going to listen to this. So, I don't want to give everything away. But also, basically, none of them will trade with me anymore. Last season, I had a terrible auction. I just bid on all the wrong players. And then I went on sort of like a manic trading spree where I somehow turned my entire team into a completely different team. And I'm a little bit happier with my team this season, so I might not try and do that as much. But really, I just try and do the classic targeting positions that I'm weak in with positions that I'm strong in, and then using the waiver wire to find value. And I think that's where sort of, if I have any advantage over my league mates, it's in using the waiver wire. I think last year I got Conor Gallagher and Martin Odegaard off the waiver wire and then was able to flip them for Mason Mount. And that's Bob's your uncle. That's a 0 cost payment for a top 10 pick, So I think that's definitely how I try and do it. But in terms of form versus fixtures, I think it depends if you have like a playoff format or not.
Yeah. Most managers do, I think.
Yeah, because in our league, we're on strict sort of league table.
Yeah.
And so you can't really be flipping people based on fixtures if you're planning to play them. So I think usually I have like a pretty clear plan when it comes to guys. It'll be someone like an Abdoulaye Doucouré or a Joe Willock who's clearly running hot. Yeah. And then you try and sell those guys like your life depends on it.
Love it. Okay. That's all we had planned to talk about, man.
Beautiful. That is the we've run long here, so
I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I feel like we could grab have a bottle of wine and talk Fantrax for hours, John. It's been a great chat.
I could keep cooking. This is great. This is really fun.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you. We'll definitely have you back later on in the season. We want to bring on, multiple fan reps at the same time. Maybe have some head-to-head games, catch up on the club assets, that sort of stuff. But, I mean, before we sign off, do you have any final words, piece of advice for Fantrax managers this season?
I mean, what buy the dip, short the VIX, or whatever. But make smart pickups and then sell them. That's the way that you win. But no, I just want to say thanks to you and the whole team at Banta Boys, because this was really fun, and I look forward to the next time that you guys are going to have me on, allegedly, because it was just fun talking shop. I haven't done this since I was a young bull, so it's good to be back in the mix and
for sure
talking about what I spend 50% of my day doing, just scrolling around on Twitter looking at what us idiots are saying. It's fun. So
yeah, man, I really did enjoy this chat. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to cut things off now, because my Nottingham Forest rep is like, mate, I've got to go to bed. Like, come on, we got to record now. So listeners, this was 19 of 20. We're going on to the final one. We're almost there. You know what? Yeah, we'll just see you on the next episode. Until then,
let's get it.
Peace.